This is the most dangerous moment of my life. If my kids get taken away from me, I'm literally gonna die.
People fear asking for help because they don't want their children to be removed. We need to normalize asking for help rather than it kind of being a stigma. To be financially stable, to be that picture-perfect family. There's so much things on social media, right, that shows what families should be, or you're in that moment, and I think that's an unrealistic expectation for families to manage all that. When people don't ask for help when they need it, they're parenting in isolation. Guilt and shame has a lot to do with it, plays I think a key factor in that. Embarrassment, not wanting to be that failure of a parent, high expectations that you can do it all. For parents to be successful, I think they need community. They need support. It's cliche to say it takes a village to raise a child, and that's absolutely true. We can't do it all on our own. In a perfect world, community would be supporting community. Less removals, especially for Black and brown bodies, less out-of-home care needed, and they're getting the resources that they need.
We have to be able to connect families and ourselves, and the parent too, to support early when we need it, to be able to ask for help, to be able to reach out and to connect, to go to these centers of support in which it's safe to learn to be a parent. It's safe to get connected to who or what you need.
I was 19 when I had my son. When I aged out, I signed my extended foster care paper to stay up until I was 21 years old. And I had a case manager. It was her job to come visit me once a month to see how I'm doing, how's school going, do I still have a job? Because there were expectations that you're supposed to meet for that program. This one time that when she came, my son was home. We're sitting talking, and then she was opening his diaper, checking if I like diaper rashes or things like that. And I was like, I remember feeling so uncomfortable and felt like I was being watched. But you're here to support me, but you're also looking for something to find doing the opposite of that by checking his diaper and looking for reasons almost to take him away from me. That felt very uncomfortable and intrusive, and again, you were not there for him, you were here for me.
Across the United States and in Arizona, about a third of families can expect to get investigated by the Child Protection Services department of their state. In our state, in Arizona, it's called the Department of Child Safety. A third. And for communities of color, particularly African Americans, the rate is around 60%, 50 to 60%. So more often than not, families are getting investigated.
During the pandemic, I was really policing my kids, and I can say that word because you are overseeing what your kids do during their school time online, and it was hybrid learning. My daughter is such a socialite, and she gets it honest, that she would never pay attention. She was on the chat on the side talking to her friends. She literally got in trouble. We're getting calls from the school saying, we're going to have to take your daughter off the chat. It was a frustrating time for everyone. I had just had my third child, and he wasn't in school. So I had the baby and no sleep. And I was just like, and then the teacher heard me. I literally lost it. Like a few days later, this lady knocks on my door. Hi, I'm from DCS. And I'm like, it was my fault. So she tells me, well, they're saying that, you said yada, yada, yada. In Black families, we say crazy things. I mean, we talk so crazy because we grew up hearing it. And it's not cussing. It's just saying crazy things like, I'm going to slap the black off of you. This literally cannot happen. But we laugh at it and we think it's funny in our generation. And we made jokes about it all throughout the pandemic. There were so many memes. It was just like, oh, this is funny. It wasn't funny when that lady knocked on my door.
There's not enough understanding culturally of what goes on in Black houses. So I wanted to be that voice to kind of bridge that gap and connect and help people understand these things like, hey, this is just a cultural thing. This is not anything that there's neglect or poverty or abuse or however you want to interpret that. I'm going to be here to help people in our community and advocate for them not to be involved with systems that are trying to remove their children from their homes, because essentially that's what they end up doing most times, or more times than not, when something could have been done to circumvent that, right? Like a resource was missing, something was needed within the family.
I completely was frozen. I was afraid. If this lady doesn't like us or thinks that we're just like ghetto Black people, she's taking our kids no matter what we say to her, no matter what we do. It's her opinion of us that matters. It's her perception. And I know that her perception can never be the same as another Black parent's perception, or even a person going through the pandemic with kids. The lady even told me that she didn't have kids. She came back multiple times, and one time she came back with the police, which was like uncalled for. It was invasive, horrible. To me, that kind of home invasion is not something that I think any family should have to go through.
When we focus on investigation, we're creating this culture of surveillance where people are less likely to ask for help and therefore more likely to need an investigation. We have to turn that around. Investigation, is at best embarrassing, at best inconvenient, and we don't want to create a system that focuses on surveillance. We don't want to create a culture that focuses on surveillance of families. We want to create a culture that focuses on support. How do we support the needs of families so that they can be strong, so that their children can develop and reach their potential, and so we can prevent bad things from happening in the first place? We are a statewide nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to improving the way that Arizona meets the needs of families, because we know that when families get what they need, when they need it, in their communities, before crisis happens, that's when we prevent child abuse and neglect from happening in the first place. So one of the things that we've been focused on for the past several years at Prevent Child Abuse Arizona are these family resource centers, which are these hubs of support and connection for people raising children. And they exist in Arizona already. There are over 60 of them that exist in Arizona. And we know that when families get the support and connection when they need it, that is when we prevent the overwhelming stress that tends to cascade into crises that could lead to child abuse and neglect. Going into a family resource center, I heard it described as like walking into your best friend's kitchen. You're there, you're safe to be you. In fact, these centers, there's research that was done earlier this year that showed that these centers have a net promoter score of 95. What that means is they're trusted. These are centers that people trust going into and trust referring their friends to because they're there for you as a parent.
Well, I actually got connected with a family resource center during my dependency case, and thank God for it. A family resource center for me gave me a safe environment to ask for help. I was offered parenting classes. I was offered a get-together with other mothers. It encouraged me to be able to change these behaviors and put me in safe spaces with like-minded people for me to heal. Winter came, I needed a coat, and it was offered, so I didn't really have to ask for it, but I knew that if I needed to ask for it, I could. It gave me long-term success. It gave me community, and I know that if I were connected with a family resource center prior to my dependency case, it probably wouldn't have happened. I would tell parents, if they felt guilt, shame, embarrassed about asking for help, ask for it. You're not the only one. We need to normalize asking for help.
Days felt so long just being home with my kids. And so my oldest daughter started preschool. And in the Parent Square app, we got a notification with a newsletter, what was going on in the district. And the Pendergast Resource Center was linked there. And so my husband actually encouraged me to come to one of the classes. I was very, very nervous to come to a class on my own. And I was new to the area, so I was super nervous, just anxiety through the roof. So he came with me to the first class. I have two daughters, so all four of us came. We did a yoga class. And then the ladies at the Resource Center told us that we could come to the playroom as well after the class. And so we came over and we just keep coming back.
A lot of times you're like, am I doing what's right for them? Questioning like, what else can I do? And I feel like coming to the Resource Center, you learn a lot of things. You get a lot of ideas of like how to engage with your child. When you come to these organized classes and things, you meet parents, and then you do see each other more frequently. You become friends. Your kids become friends. So you kind of establish that sense of community there.
For someone like myself who left my home state, my family behind, it's just myself and my husband here in Arizona. And so having some support from the ladies at the Resource Center whenever I have a question or I'm just feeling like I need to talk to someone. I drop my children off at school, and sometimes I see the ladies in the parking lot, and I'll stop them before they walk into the office, and I'll say, hey, like, my daughter was crying today. What can I do to support her? And, they've let me cry to them, and they've let my children cry, and they've, talked me through how to support my kids. And I think that's super valuable, and I really don't know where else I would go to get that support.
My son used to be very shy when we first came out, and he's come out of his shell. This is the first time I've left him like in the group by himself. Usually, I'm in the same room as him, and he's doing great. So, that shows like, hey, it helps the kids a lot, and he's almost 2. He's going to be 2 soon. And I feel like he's thriving just because of all the things that he is involved in, all the things I bring him to. He's doing really good.
Here at the Community Hub at Pilgrim Rest, we do offer assistance for families who are seeking help with rent and utilities. We also have a mobile food pantry here as well every single month to kind of face the food disparity problems that we have here in Phoenix. And we also aim to focus at connecting the family to other resources. Sometimes it's challenging for people out of fear, out of embarrassment, and sometimes they just feel humiliated. We've had people come in who have college degrees and who at one point in time were at a certain economic level, and they're no longer at that status. And so they come in sometimes feeling embarrassed or ashamed to kind of explain their situation. And so we really try to remind people that, hey, life can happen to anybody, that humbleness is very, very important, and that we want to make sure that people realize that the community is here no matter what they're going through, what they've been through, or what their past economic status may have been.
When I first came over and was introduced to Community Hub, I was initially working as an entry-level investigator with the Department of Child Safety. After being unemployed for over 14 months, I was working on my dual master's degree. I was literally 2 classes away from completion. And I was in that same space of disparity, hurt, disappointment, discouraged, not knowing where to turn to get back on track financially. So I actually ended up taking advantage of a free program class that was a parenting class through the Nurturing Parenting Program. Being a single mother of 4 children by myself and trying to go to school full time and being employed just really weighed on me. I had savings and I used my savings, but at some point I exhausted them and bills started to pile up. I needed a refuge. I needed a place that I can go in and talk to someone that can connect to my situation. And then I was introduced to Community Hub. We have a safe space that we can come to, kind of like a pit stop before things get way beyond our control, or we can pull away from some of those key things. A lot of times when we have situations with DCS being involved or preventative measurements, sometimes those cases are not actually cases. They are a cry for help. That help looks like maybe we need money for rent. Maybe we're just a little bit short. We need to pull some ends together. Or maybe we just need someone that can relate to what we're going through, lifting that heavy load off of us.
There are over 60 family resource centers in Arizona, but right now they don't exist everywhere. So one of our goals is to make them accessible and available all over Arizona, because 11 of our 15 counties in Arizona currently don't have one of these family resource centers. So we want to make them everywhere in Arizona, and we're working on that at Prevent Child Abuse Arizona with our partners. A lot of the family resource centers that exist in this state also focus on children birth to 5 and their families. And we know that families with children over the age of 5 also have needs and need connection. And so we're working to expand family resource centers to be able to meet the needs of families with all ages of children from ages birth to 17.
We're in a space to restore hope, and the community needs hope. We need to be brought back together so that we can figure out these things together.
But to me, asking for help is the strongest you can be, because it's saying like, hey, look, I don't know everything. You know, there's a saying my grandfather used to say, everything you know can fill up all the books in the world, or everything you don't know can fill up all the books in the universe. So you don't know as much as you think you know, right? None of us do, but we want to have this false perception that we know everything.
Parenting can sometimes feel lonely, but did you know that family resource centers can connect you to other families, offer you parenting support, and give you a sense of community? Go to familyhubaz.org to find a family resource center near you.